Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen That, a movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. I'm your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Ben.
And today we are discussing Dear Evan Hansen. And stick around until the end, since this is our musical episode. Ben will be giving us some Tony predictions.
This week in You Have Seen That? Dear Evan Hansen, released in September 2021, directed by Steven Chbosky. This stars Ben Platt reprising the role he famously had on Broadway, along with Caitlin Dever, Amy Adams, Julianne Moore, and Amanda Stenberg. This movie had a $28 million budget and did not do so hot at the box office, only making $19 million in its global run. This show, on Broadway, was nominated for 9 Tony Awards, won 6, and was on Broadway from 2016 to 2022, featuring many known stars and at least in internet fame who have played the role of Evan Hansen, such as Jordan Fisher, Andrew Barth Feldman, Noah Galvin. This movie, however, did not see the same success. It was critically panned, with a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes amongst critics. Don't look at the audience reaction, though, that tell you a different story. And this movie was also nominated for multiple Razzie Awards, which it didn't even win any of those. So, sorry, Dear Evan Hansen.
Sorry. All right. So, Ben, why don't you tell us your history with this movie and or the musical?
Well, I have no history with the movie, but the musical, I have seen twice on Broadway. I saw twice on Broadway during its run. I saw it the first summer it was on Broadway, so shortly after it won Best Musical at the Tonys with the original cast, including Ben Platt. So that was summer of 2017. And then in the fall of 2018, I took a group of students to New York and we saw Dear Evan Hansen again. I saw it again. And we also saw Anastasia on that trip. By then, Ben Platt was not in it. Some of the main cast had been turned over. But it was a very, that was when it was still kind of at the peak of its powers. And the kids, were very into that show at that time. So it was a big, incentive for them to come on the trip. Not that they need an incentive to go to New York City, but but it was, kind of the hot ticket at the time for teenagers to see. So I've seen it twice on Broadway. I obviously was aware of the movie coming out, but didn't really have any real desire to see it until now.
And you still didn't have a desire. Geoff, what is your history?
So I had only heard You Will Be Found before seeing this movie. We saw it in theaters in its initial run. I knew none of the songs. I only knew that Ben Platt was Evan Hansen and that he was really good in the role on Broadway. And it won a lot of Tony Awards. That's all that I knew. I have never listened to the soundtrack, again, before the movie. And yeah, didn't really have a strong history with it whatsoever. Was more, when I initially saw it, I was going into it with a really intense curiosity.
Yeah. Same, except for I knew a few of the songs since I'm a little bit in the theater bubble. So I think I knew a few of the songs. And yeah, I knew Ben Platt was in it, and that was about it. So just saw it the one time when it came to the theaters, and now this time. So, Ben, give us your score.
Well, we're going to talk more about where I've gone with this musical, which I'll get into after we do our scores. But regardless of my thoughts on the musical, and I have complicated thoughts on the musical, this is not a good film. So I don't think it's as much of a train wreck as Cats, which I gave a 1 to. Um, and I certainly enjoyed it more than The Terminator, but I don't think it's a better movie than The Terminator. So I'm going to stick right with The Terminator score. I'm going to give it a 1.75, which is exactly what I gave The Terminator. And for
Okay.
very different reasons.
Very different reasons.
One,
And what about you, Geoff?
So the first time I saw this movie, I looked back at my letterbox and I gave it a 2.5. I am lowering my score this time around. It just, I know we'll get into it, but this just does not work as a movie to translate from the stage to the screen. It just, at least this version of it. So yeah, this is a 2 for me.
The first time I saw this, for some reason I gave it a 3 on Letterboxd. I don't really know why, but Ben, we're twins. I'm giving it a 1.75.
so it did outperform Cats, I believe.
Only because you dragged Cats down,
I
Ben.
did drag Cats down. Okay. So before we talk about the film, let me just talk a little bit about the musical, if I may. So this is a show that I feel like my experience with it has been a lot of people's experience with it, which was when it came out, it was like a year after Hamilton. It swept, not swept, but it was, the next big thing after Hamilton. It did really great at the Tonys. It was a hot ticket. I saw it as part of a Broadway teachers workshop, which was the only way I probably could have seen it at the time because tickets were tough to get with that original cast. And I saw it the same day I saw Come From Away. I saw Dear Evan Hansen as a matinee, and I saw Come From Away in the evening. And I loved them both at the time. Loved them both. I actually think I liked Dear Evan Hansen more at the time. But I felt like Come From Away was going to stick with me longer. And Come From Away, I still have a great appreciation for. Dear Evan Hansen, like it is still has great music, but it has not aged well at all. And it's
Nope.
amazing. And I feel like this has been true for a lot of people who are fans of it on Broadway. I've never seen a musical like lose its luster as quickly as Dear Evan Hansen did, from being like the it show to being like a ooh, you know. Something about COVID seemed to do it in.
Mm.
It was like, and I think the combination of COVID and the film really destroyed this show because it was a hot ticket before COVID shut down, even all the way into early 2020. It was still a very popular show, and even long after Ben Platt left, it was still doing really well. And I don't think people were scrutinizing it that much. But then I feel like maybe people were just bored during COVID, and then the film came out, and all of a sudden I think people not only like hated the film but also like then started to re-examine the show and be like, is this a good show? Does this have a good message? Or is this a very problematic show? And I think people really turned on it big time, and I understand that because I think for some reason when you're in that theater, and when I was in that theater in 2017 with that original cast and Ben Platt, who seemed much younger 4 years before the film, like it really moved me. It really captured me. I was so moved by the story. I was moved by the music, and I was all in on it. It was like a top 10 experience for me as far as shows go.
Mhm.
Um, and even when I saw it, with the year later, I can't remember who I saw as Evan Hansen, but he wasn't that good. But I still really loved the show when I saw it with the students a year later. But I think for whatever reason, then it came back. It reopened in December 2021 from COVID, and then was closed by September of 2022. And it really just flamed out real fast once it came back from COVID. And it hasn't had like the kind of, Hamilton, like I said, came out a year before and is still playing to huge audiences on Broadway. Come From Away is not open anymore, but continues to have a lot of respected feelings in the Broadway community. Hadestown, which was the kind of one of the next big it shows after Dear Evan Hansen, is still playing on Broadway. And for some reason, this one really crashed and burned after a while. And I think it's because people are struggling to reconcile. Like, it still has a great score. The music is still great to this day. I still love some of the songs. But yeah, it is a problematic story. And I think the movie just, exacerbated that.
Yeah, there is definitely a power to seeing something on the stage. I think you nailed that perfectly when you were talking about like sitting there in the theater and watching a show and hearing this big song and everything like that. It is so powerful and so amazing to hear, regardless of the context, especially when it's performed live, especially with someone like Ben Platt, who is clearly a very talented singer. We all know this. I was shocked when I heard You Will Be, so because I had heard You Will Be Found and was like, this is a good song. And I still hear it even today on like Christian radio stations and stuff like that. They play covers of it and whatnot. But hearing it in the context of the movie shocked me. I'm like, wait, this is the song that everybody is into. This is the song that is so loved and celebrated and sung and everything like that in the context of this movie, when in this story, I should say, because obviously it was a musical before a movie, but in the context of this story, it's about this kid who's just building up lie on lie on lie on lie. He's doing something that's not good. And yes, the song is powerful, but like the context of the show and everything, why are we celebrating this? Why is this so loved? I mean, sure, it's good, but come on. I'm sitting there cringing in the theater the first time I'm seeing this. I'm like, what is this?
And the thing is, like, I'm not somebody who loves everything I see on Broadway. Like, I'm not someone who just always gets wrapped up in it. I mean, I can get like, The Notebook. I was like, oh, I was moved a little bit, but I didn't. I walked out of the theater being like, that wasn't that good a show,
right?
Like Dear Evan Hansen, I did not come out of the theater thinking that. I came out of the theater being like, oh my gosh, I love this show.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
I don't know, it just hasn't held up to scrutiny over the years.
I think there's a couple issues here. One, and I read this interview, so I cannot like take credit for having this thought, and we can get into the way Ben Platt looks in this movie down the road. But I will say off the bat that because he's a man and very obviously a man, I think that you don't get the naivety that you need in the Evan Hansen character, because a grown man making these decisions is like, wow, you're a terrible person. But if you actually had a high schooler or someone believable as a high schooler making those decisions, you have a little bit more empathy for them and a little more like, oh, okay, like
That's a good
I understand.
point. That's a good point. I'm curious if this show will get a resurgence when it becomes licensed by like college, like when it's available to perform for colleges and community theaters. Like, I'm curious if it will start to be a thing again. Like, people will not hate on it as much, but I don't know. It might just be one of those shows that was a flash in the pan for its time. I feel like even on top of the message of it, it also feels so mid 2010s.
Incredibly.
Like, it's like social media approach, and it just feels like already a very dated show in that sense too.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Amanda, you made a really good point about, hey, he looks like a grown man.
Yeah.
Like that. I just going through, one of the people who played Evan Hansen back during its Broadway run was a guy named Andrew Barth Feldman, who was born in 2002, I believe. He was just in a movie with Jennifer Lawrence called No Hard Feelings, which I thought was good, and he is really good in the lead role. If he is playing Evan Hansen, he would have been 19 at the time the movie came out, closer to the actual age of the character, and he played it on Broadway, so he's already basically the age of the character. Automatically, it looks better. It comes across better, and maybe is a better movie, but obviously Ben's got a connection to the producers, and obviously he's got to tie with the role, and you got to sell it somehow, so yeah, it wouldn't have worked as a result.
That's my second reason why I think people turned on this, and it's because of Ben Platt. Like, I think he did it because he was very infamously known for saying in interviews that this movie would not have made without his involvement, and no one else could have played it except for him, because people have such a tie to Ben Platt as Evan Hansen that there's no way they could have cast someone else. And, the nepotism with having a connection to the producer, like, I think all of that, like, he just kind of it all.
I think this experience humbled him to some degree, though, because like now, like I've since seen him. I saw him in Parade 2 years ago, and he was good again on stage. Like, I think maybe some lessons were learned from this experience.
He's fantastic in theater camp, and I never thought I would forgive him, but I love that movie.
Yeah, he's like, all right, you're kind of forgiven.
just a little bit.
Just a
But
little
I will
bit.
never forgive the people who worked on makeup in this show.
And his hair. Yeah, good Lord.
Oh, hair
His
and makeup.
hair.
I will
Yeah.
never forgive you guys.
No, it is terrible. And it's not how it was done on Broadway, so I don't know, what
Yeah,
the thinking was.
I don't know. But so I just learned today, I did not realize that they actually had facial prosthetics on him.
To make him
And
look younger.
yes,
Jeez.
which
Didn't work.
I'm
Definitely did not
guessing
work.
I don't know exactly what the prosthetics were, but I'm guessing they were on his cheeks to maybe give him more of a boyish, to try to give
Yeah.
him more of a rounder, boyish face. But like literally my second note here is, but he's 35. Like he's supposed to be 17. He
Yeah.
looks 35. Ben, do you know how old he was when he filmed this? Only 26.
Right.
They
Right.
somehow made
I know,
him look 10 to 15
older
years
than he
older
is.
than what he
Yeah.
actually was.
Because there are 26-year-olds who could probably pass for high school students.
Definitely.
Right.
Um,
Like I don't understand. It just
I mean,
I
Caitlin
can't-
Deaver, she's not that much younger than him, but she looks like a child compared to him in this movie.
Timothy Chalamet
Yes.
is still basically playing high schoolers.
They should have gotten Timothy to play Evan.
I just don't understand. And like one of my favorite reviews I read of this was like the fact that it's so shocking that you just do not get used to his face at all throughout the movie. It's like
No.
you're still at the end and you're like, ah, you look like that? Why? The shock
It's like
never
it's
wears
almost
off.
as scary as the cats from Cats.
Almost.
It really is. I would rather look at the cats. I'm so disturbed by his face.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that until this podcast.
At least
Even-
they're somewhat interesting, I guess.
So even if for some reason we can get past Ben Platt and the problematic storyline, it's also just like a bad adaptation of the musical
Yes.
on top of it. And it's a show that is not enhanced by being a movie. Like, and generally, I'm most of the time not going to like the movie more than the musical. Very few exceptions, Grease being one of them. Speaking of high schoolers, much older, but
See,
whatever.
that one's just everybody looks like they're
Stockard Channing's like a
35.
45-year-old woman in Greece as Rizzo, but
If you're gonna have
whatever.
one 45-year-old, you have to have everyone be
they're
45.
all, yeah. And
then
then you're
it's
just like, maybe that's
believable.
how they were in the 50s. So it totally wrong. It totally, tracks. But like, I think, there are movies, even when maybe it's not an improvement on the stage show, but it works. Like, for example, like Hairspray.
Yep.
Filling in that world of Baltimore and the bigger sets and the bigger amount of extras and things like that, it can work great on a show like that becoming a movie. Here, like, this is like typically done with a cast of like 8
Yep.
on stage. So there is not a gym full of students. There are not lockers, going down the hallways. Also, the set on Broadway is incredibly sparse. They just have a few little things here and there. The pit is up to one side of the stage in like almost a little room up to the one side. And then they just have, a few, maybe a couple, a couch and a table for the home scene or a few little flowers for the orchard. And they don't do much at all with the set. And they only have 8 characters playing just those main roles. So to add like entire swaths of ensemble members, like, is just such a bad choice. And it just this doesn't work. This kind of show doesn't work as a movie if you're going to try to make it bigger. It's not a show that can be bigger, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he tried in the beginning. I noticed it right off the bat with the first song. I think it's called For Forever. I think is what it's called, which is
well, the first one's Waving Through the Window.
Waving Through the Window. Thank you. I'm sorry. Waving Through the Window.
Waving Through a Window, excuse me.
Which is probably my favorite song, maybe, in the show. But like, you could tell like right off the bat, like the director is trying to, or the editor and director are trying to almost over edit the movie to make it more exciting. Because as
Yes.
Evan is singing tap, tap, tapping on the glass, you could see the camera just being like bam, 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 and trying to make it splashy and fun. And it's like, okay, now you're just you feel like you're overdoing it. This feels like a lot, and you got to try really, really hard to make it exciting. And then you get some scenes later on in the movie where it's set in a very intimate setting, and it just does not work at all because all of the songs are outside of You Will Be Found are small and intimate songs only sung by one or two people that you can't really make bigger. And yeah, so it struggles to go beyond the stage onto the screen.
Yeah, like the movie's literally so boring in so many parts because it's just like either one person singing at another person and you're just
Right.
getting like a shot of that person and then that person, or it's like Evan singing at a couple of other people and it's like, wow, this is just boring. Outside of when Evan was singing, oh, which one was it? Oh, I think the song when he is first talking about Connor and their friendship and how they went
It's
to the
Sincerely
orchard.
Me.
Yeah, maybe. No, I don't know. Anyways, some of the shots of like the dad and like Amy Adams, like as they're sitting there, I'm like, wow, this is the
And
dad was like, huh?
I
Like,
wrote down
what's
how many
going
times
on?
are we going to walk through the halls with an inner monologue? It like walk through a school hallway with an inner monologue. Like it was done so many times where they're just like walking through the hallway singing what they're thinking, and a few kids are looking from their lockers,
Mm-hmm.
being like, "Why is this old man walking through the school?"
All right, I
Or
have
even they and then they do the same thing with Alana's song too. Like she's doing the exact same thing. She's walking through the hallways
Mhm.
singing. Like
Literally the
they have
exact
Yep.
no
same.
other way of staging these songs because they're not
Nope.
production numbers. They're not meant to be in that way. You know, it works fine on a stage, but it does in a small cast and a
Yeah.
sparse staging. It doesn't work in this type of environment.
You know what else works well on a stage and not in a film? Ben Platt's facial expressions while he's singing.
That's true.
Yep.
Like I was like, it is so obvious that he does not know how to like act, I guess not act for film, but sing for film, I guess, as opposed to a theater. Like just his facial expressions as he's moving his head, and I'm like, dude, this is not on the stage. Like, you know,
No.
like Jeff said, like Caitlin Deaver, like she seemed so much more natural in the way when she was singing and interacting, and he's just being so dramatic and like
Yeah.
twitchy, and I'm like, whoa, can we calm down?
But that being said, like the other problem this movie has, which many movie musicals do, is that like, you know, Caitlin Deaver, Julianne Moore, good actresses. I love Caitlin Deaver, but they're not great singers. You know,
Yeah,
and Julianne Moore, she does as much as she can with that part, but she's not a great singer.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
you know, and it just those songs need nice singing, and they're getting like you're getting like high school, you know, untrained voice singing as opposed to professional Broadway singing.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, didn't the role of Evan's mom win the
Hmm.
Tony as
Yeah, it
well?
was Rachel Bay Jones. She was phenomenal. Um, yeah, she was so good. And that and again, I didn't dislike Julianne Moore, but Rachel Bay Jones was so captivating in that show. Um,
Mhm.
and there was like the thing also was that the stage musical had humor in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a lot of humor with Jared and Alana. There was even some humor with Rachel Bay Jones and Evan. Like, you know, that like a little bit if I remember correctly, like that scene with the with Connor's parents had some humor in it. Had, you know, a little
Mhm.
bit of little, you know, and it wasn't just so dour like this movie is the
So
entire time.
serious and so awkward.
Like there was I remember laughing at times in the audience at the show.
Yeah. I think the only time I laughed in this movie when I wasn't laughing at something that I wasn't supposed to be laughing at was during Connor's song. Wait, is that Sincerely Me?
The one where they're like, "Dear Evan Hansen," and
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
like being
yeah,
goofy and they're like rewrite oh they're writing the emails
Yes.
and he's like singing
yes,
what the emails are
yes.
saying, but they're like rewriting and so he's having to re-sing it. Like I thought I genuinely enjoyed that one song that one sequence, the way that they did it.
Yeah.
That's probably the
I would say
song
that
that translates the best to a film.
I agree.
And it's certainly the one that has the most energy on stage. It's the most production numbery.
Hmm.
They did thankfully get rid of a god awful song between Connor's dad and Evan that's on stage.
Oh,
That is
Oh.
just
ew.
terrible. I
Oh
forget
no.
I can't remember the name of it, but it's
Ew.
towards the beginning of Act Two, and it is brutal on stage. I can't even imagine how horrific it would have been in this
Would it have
movie.
happened? Would it have happened when Evan is in Connor's dad's room with like the collectibles and like the baseball and the
Baseballs.
glove and things?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Ew.
yes.
That would have been real
Yeah,
bad.
it's a pretty brutal, um, it's a pretty brutal song on stage. So I'm sure they would
Mm.
have just completely annihilated it. It's called it's called "To Break in a Glove."
Oh no.
Oh.
So
Oh.
you can draw your own conclusions about how that song goes. Also, interestingly, the father is not a stepfather in the musical.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I
Oh.
feel like, so I looked that up because I was like, am I just remembering it wrong? I'm like, I feel like they were Connor's actual parents in the movie or in the musical. And I looked it up, and sure enough, this was a change. And it was a change made partly because they cast Danny Pino or Pino, I don't know how you say his last name. And they wanted, because, he's doesn't look like he would be their father, they wanted to
Mm.
like represent more diverse families. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But I feel like that doesn't work for this story because I think one of the things that needs to be like conveyed is this family getting broken apart. Um, and not that that can't happen with a step parent because it certainly can, but I feel like the memories that they're talking about and stuff of being children would be different if your original father left and then you had this stepdad coming in. Like it wouldn't be quite the like romanticized time at the orchard being little kids, I don't think. So I feel like
Right.
it doesn't it kind of takes away a little bit. And I also think it takes away a little bit from the pain of the father, and not that the stepfather didn't care, but
Hmm.
different than an actual father, I think. Um, so
I'm
anyway,
guessing, yeah, I'm guessing that's probably why they said that he came in when they were like very young.
yeah,
Um,
and I think that's what they tried to do, but like, but then
yeah,
I was already like, okay, so like this family's already been through a lot. This isn't like the first, I don't know.
yeah. Which, wait, Jeff, that answers our question about the age difference between Connor.
Oh yes.
Because she said that Connor was 3 and she was 1. So there's only a 2-year age difference. Because I was like, when she was talking about when she was 12 and she had to take the bus to give Connor money to like buy drugs or whatever he was going to do. And I was like, wait, how old is he in this scenario if she's only 12?
Yeah,
Because I did not get the impression that there was a huge age difference between the two of them.
no, no. Well, especially like if she's dating Evan Hansen and he was
Right.
friends with Connor, like it can't be that big of a
Yeah,
um
exactly.
yeah. So that was one major change they made that I feel like um but I also felt like to me Amy Adams and Danny Pino were dreadful in this movie.
Yes. I agree.
Just dreadful. Like Julianne Moore and Caitlin Dever had some nice moments, but those two, I like not for a second did I buy that this was a family whose son had just killed themselves.
Absolutely not.
Like like you come in and they're meeting Evan Hansen in the school, and then Evan goes back out in the hallway and says something like, "They were so sad, his parents. I've never seen anyone so sad before, like his mom." I was like, she barely seemed sad. She was like, "Hey, Evan."
She looked very put together for
Very
someone
put
whose
together
son just
for a
died.
son who had killed himself the day before. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Um,
Yeah, not
and
selling it at all.
no, and not once did I get the sense of like a grieving family, in the way that I feel like it should be.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and to be fair, those are also the worst characters in the stage version, the two parents, and I don't know that it was totally captured that well either on stage, but it was not this bad. Because I just didn't like I I don't know. Maybe it makes it feel less bad that Evan is taking advantage of them because they don't seem that sympathetic, but
Right.
like I don't know, this is a family that just got torn apart and was having a lot of issues before it with this kid, and it just feels like there would be such a sense of defeatedness and deflation and grief, and that has to, if this weird plot is ever going to work, it has to require the family to be so distraught and torn up that they can just somehow, you know, latch onto Evan in a way that like rational thinking people wouldn't. And because his family never seemed to get to that point, I think that made the plot work even less than it already does.
Yeah. That scene when they're initially at the table and he's building the lie that they went to the orchard and everything. I was like, look it's exactly how like psychics work, because he was like, we, went to, and they're like, the orchard? Oh my God, we loved the orchard and we went to this ice cream place. And he's like, yes, the orchard, the ice cream. I was like, you guys literally just gave him everything and he only just spat it back at you. Like,
I love the comparison to a psychic.
I'm like, that's exactly what they do.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's rough.
I really want to know what the secret is, which is something that Connor's mom was like into at one point, when Zoe was like, she was into Buddhism, The Secret, like
Buddhism,
this other thing.
Buddhism. I could see her doing that too.
No, maybe if the rat lips were the parents.
I wouldn't feel as bad. It's like, all right, Evan, you're cool.
That's a White Lotus reference for people who don't know what we're talking about. Can you imagine if Parker Posey was the mom?
There you go. That's our humor element right there.
And she almost had to live that.
She
almost.
Did. It's true.
If what's his face had actually died from drinking that smoothie.
Spoiler alert.
Whatever. If you haven't seen it by now,
That's
you're
fair.
behind.
That's fair. Oh no, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say that same scene you were talking about. That's when they do the song "For Forever," which is musically a great song in my opinion. That's such a pretty song, but like, yikes, it really didn't work in this sense.
Not at all.
Like, and that like breaking character to sing, like, it works on stage most of the time, because you can freeze the other characters, or you can, have them step out of the moment kind of thing, and you can do lighting changes and stuff. But in a movie at a dinner table, yikes, it really didn't work.
Right, especially because you're not seeing anything else really,
Right,
outside of the occasional jump to Evan's memory of running through the park about to go climb the tree. And you're just looking at this family just awkwardly staring at him, doing nothing. Kind of, again, playing into what you said there. Just they're doing nothing. There's no emotion. I mean, Zoe is the only one who like kind of is feeling something, but it's like, yeah, they're all just sitting there, and it just is so awkward. One of my notes was the end of For Forever feels just so awkward. And it's just, as they're panning back and forth between these characters, they're just awkwardly staring at Evan. I'm like, stop. Please stop.
I feel like I need to go through and listen to this soundtrack on its own, because I have not done that. And I feel like I need to just listen to the songs without being horrified by what I'm seeing.
Some of the songs definitely rubbed me the wrong way more watching this movie than they ever did on stage, in addition to For Forever, which I still like as a song. But two of them that really bugged me. One was If I Could Tell Her, where he like basically talks about how much he loves his sister through Connor.
That's so messed up.
Weird.
Incredible.
So weird.
He told her he loved her through
These
the
are the
song.
things Connor is saying about his sister to Evan. Like, yikes. And then like, she's just like, wow, really? He said that about me? Oh my gosh. Like, no, that's creepy if your brother is saying that about you.
Right?
And then the other one was Words Fail, which I don't think works in general because it's just such a chicken song from Evan where they're like, he gets caught in everything and then he's like, words fail.
One of the reviews I
It's
read
like
was like
barely even an apology. It's just
it said the next time I mess something up, I'm just gonna say words fail.
get ready, Geoff, the next time you guys have a fight.
My note was if someone broke out into song after my life is ruined, I swear. Singing
Words fail. Yeah, it's not great, Bob.
No.
Nope.
But I do still love Waving Through a Window. I do still love For Forever, Sincerely Me, and especially You Will Be Found. Like those are great songs just by themselves. I'd love to see someone take like a pass and write an entirely different musical 20 years from now with the same songs.
Actually, Ben, one question Amanda and I were talking about while we were watching it. When you saw it on Broadway, how did they pull off You Will Be Found on the stage? Was it similar to the movie where like there'd be maybe clips posted like behind
Yes, there's a
Evan coming
lot
in?
that appears up on like a screen.
Okay.
So it starts the same with him at the assembly, kind of speaking, and then if I remember right, and again it's been a long time, but if I remember right, um, I believe like they show a lot of the like social media blowing up on like a projection, and then the cast is kind of weaving in and out on stage. They're not dancing, like I don't want to make it sound like that, but they're like coming on, going off, meeting up. You know what I mean? Like kind of meeting in different places. Um, and even though it's only like 8 of them singing, maybe there's some offstage voices included, but it's a very powerful sound in the theater with that song, like as it builds. I think they might have done some of it for the Tonys possibly, if I remember right.
I believe it.
Yeah, I feel like they did.
Yeah, but it was very effective, and it's the Act One finale too.
Right. Makes
It goes to
sense.
intermission right after
Yeah.
that, and it was a very powerful moment on stage for sure.
Oh, I bet. Absolutely. I can imagine, especially because it's only one of the only ensemble numbers,
Yeah,
if not the only ensemble number. So it absolutely makes sense that it would work.
yeah.
And hearing that amazing sound and catching all the
We
characters.
actually when we went with the students, they got to do like a music workshop with some people who work on Evan Hansen. They got to sing that song with like the music director and a cast member.
That's
Which is
amazing.
really fun. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think that song has really transcended the show. I think, like you said, you hear it on the radio. I think it gets done
Yeah.
in choirs all the time. It's become like an anthem for kind of, choirs in general and all sorts of other, funerals, graduations, kind of thing like that.
Yeah, the message that the show's supposed to be about.
Yeah, if only the context around the song wasn't so crappy, then yeah, sure, I'd be more on down for it.
Uh,
But I do think it's again, it's to me, it's like objectively a great song. It's really, really wonderful song.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
agree.
I really like that one.
Yeah.
I just think there's too much time in this movie before the fallout. There's too much time there.
yeah,
I don't know what, and I don't know if it feels the same way in the musical, but it's like that the fallout's coming. You know
Yeah.
his lie is going to be found out, and it just feels like even between just, you will be found the act one ending and when he's actually found out, it's like there's so much time in
yeah.
between.
I don't remember feeling that way with the musical. I'd have to actually like look at to see, but I feel like they do a little bit more to, maybe not cut it close, but like make a few moments where it's like about to get revealed and the other thing is both, if I remember correctly, both Jared and Connor are bigger parts in the musical. Um, like Jared is around a lot more as a friend,
Hmm.
so I think there's a lot more of like somebody who knows Evan's secret,
Hmm.
kind of going after, kind of being throughout, which I think helps. And then
Hmm.
Connor as well is definitely more of a presence in the musical, throughout rather than just at the very beginning like he is in the movie.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could see that being more interesting of like having the possibility that someone could find out because you have someone who knows. Like You just said that, and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot that Jared like knew the whole time.
Right, because he kind of disappears from the film.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do like him though, like
Yeah,
the
he's a
the
great
actor
character on
and
stage.
his
He's a lot of, like
character.
I said before, the comedic relief on stage.
I could see that for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I thought he was very funny.
Yeah, I found myself getting lost in terms of the sense of time around this movie because you have the beginning of the school year, and then I assume it's the same day that Connor yells at Evan, and then Zoe steps in, and then I assume it's shortly after that he writes the letter, and then 3 days later we meet, his parents, and I assume it's very shortly after that. And then there's just an unknown stretch of time that this
Right.
all kind of takes place.
There,
I don't know whether
yeah.
Act One is just over like a few weeks, or however long. Because how long did Evan keep the lie from his mom? And I know his mom is working so much and everything like that, but how long did he actually keep that from her? Could it have been just a couple of weeks? Could it have been months? I don't know. Because all of a sudden, the only sense of time that we get after this is like Evan and Zoe dancing together. Was that at like a homecoming thing, or was it at prom, or what?
Yeah,
Who knows? And then
not
we're
clear.
and then we're all the way at the end of the movie, and it's graduation and the summer, and then we find out, okay, yeah, Evan's taking a gap year to
Yeah.
think about himself, and
That part
Zoe's
is
going
in
to
the
college.
musical, so it must be intended to be over the course of an entire school year.
Right, for sure.
Um, because
Yeah,
I do remember it being like the summer and
yeah,
graduation kind of thing in the musical.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I was gonna say I think too one of the things because you mentioned like Evan's mother finding out and stuff, and I remember Rachel Bay Jones playing that so beautifully on stage. And that song "So Big, So Small" is like really breathtakingly sad and on stage, and she's just like so the way she played it was just so I don't even quite know how to describe it. Like just like heartbroken, but hope like that
yeah.
character has to be the one who loves Evan throughout, regardless of
Mhm.
what he does. Like that's his mom, and I
Hmm.
think she did maybe that helped soften the Evan character on stage, maybe without even realizing that was happening. Maybe that's why I didn't feel as negative about him as a character on stage because I think you really feel sorry for him and you feel sorry for her and it's like you see her perspective on it of this kid of this her son who's just been through so much and can't find his way and how much it breaks her heart and they've already the dad moved away and all that and I think at least the way it was played on stage by Rachel Bay Jones like maybe was enough of a sympathetic look to Evan that it helped the overall vibe of the show with him.
Mm. Yeah, justice for Evan's mom because he sucks and treated her like crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least, at least in
Yeah.
this movie. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I just don't feel that way about Evan at all. I mean, I literally wrote here, it's too overdone. I don't get kid with extreme anxiety and social awkwardness. I get creepy adult. Then I said, Evan sucks. Everything in this movie is secondhand awkwardness. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, it just,
Yeah.
yeah, it just, for whatever reason, just doesn't work.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's so there's so many moments with like the mom character too. It's so like when Evan, and maybe this is just because of the timing of this and the relatively new social media age of this, like how did Evan's mom not know or see on social media at some point relatively soon after he's singing this mega viral song that she didn't see them, and it had been I don't know how long until she actually confronts him about it or says something about it. That's felt weird. Like she's almost kept two in the dark in this
She's too
movie.
busy at work.
I know, but still, I feel like it gets to a point where like you can't be that aloof. You can't be that out of your kid's life, right? Right?
Uh,
Maybe?
I don't know. I mean, if you're working a lot and if this
Single
was
mom, I think.
written in probably, well, you said you saw it in 2017, right?
It
Yeah,
opened on Broadway in 2016,
and it
but I was
debuted
in,
in DC, and
TV. I was developed before that.
in yeah, it debuted in DC in 2015.
Yeah,
It's
so
probably
it was
written
written before
2013,
that.
2012, 2013. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
olds weren't on Facebook back then.
No. It's very
They
clear.
weren't.
It's very clear in this movie that email communication is still the way to go and not DMs. So
Speaking
many
of that, I loved how
emails.
he searched like Evan Hansen letter as if like, you know, you would ever find it that way. Like maybe I'm
Right?
just poisoned by how Facebook is now, but I'm like, you would never be able to find a post like that, even if it did
Right?
exist.
Yeah, definitely not.
No, absolutely not.
I think
Browsing.
the one thing like it really to me captures that era of social media is like his speech, you know, when people are sharing it and people are like, everybody needs to stop what they're doing and see this right now. And it's like played that way in the movie, but that is how people are about stuff like that. And
That's
like that
fair.
Oh
is
yeah.
not inaccurate. Like I feel like people are that way, maybe still to this day, but especially back then about viral clips. It's
Mhm.
like this was what exactly what I needed. This is, you know, everybody needs to watch this right now. I'm just there are social media things that happen like that.
Hmm.
The olds still do that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess
yes.
that's true. Yeah. I think then Gal Gadot did Imagine and everybody started hating stuff like that.
Very true. Oh my gosh. All
Oh,
right,
you,
so
oh,
one
you
last
brought it back.
thing I know I have to talk about
I have
is
one other question too.
Okay.
okay.
You go first, Amanda.
Okay. I need to talk about how they live in Maryland because
Yes.
this is incredible. So when Zoe is in whatever song it is, and she's sad and she's driving and she goes real fast because who knows what she's gonna do. Don't stop her now. Um, she's driving, and in that clip, I was like, Geoff, I think that car had a Maryland license plate. And like the Maryland license plate, one of them is very distinct because it has the Maryland flag at the
Right,
bottom,
right.
which is a hideous atrocity. And
Sorry to our
people
listeners in
in this
Maryland.
area, yeah, I apologize in advance. I'm going to say something very offensive to you, but you know it's true.
You're like, I'm
People
sorry if you're offended by what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say something worse. So buckle in.
people in Maryland who drive who have that license plate are literally the worst drivers. And so I was like, oh, of course she's from Maryland. Of course she has that license plate. But then, anyways, throughout the rest of the movie, I was just, Geoff and I were both tickled that it was in Maryland. And we were trying to look up the park that Evan looked at, or that he worked at, which doesn't exist. And we were looking up like Gifford's ice cream, and we were trying to guess like where they lived. And I was like, oh, with that house that like the Murphys had, I was like, yeah, they're for sure in like Howard County, and Geoff was like maybe Bethesda. And then sure enough, what was it like on social media? It said that
It,
they were in
It
Bethesda.
was at the end when Evans is posting his video. You could, or maybe it's when the Amanda Stenberg character Alana is posting the letter. You can see the geotags, and it says Bethesda, Maryland. And I was like, "Yep, we called it." Also, Gifford's Ice Cream, local ice cream chain in New England. So when the dad said that, and it immediately pricked my brain. The only reason I know that, by the way, is because I work in sports sponsorship marketing, and Giffords and the New England Patriots have had a very long partnership, and I've seen their partnerships on social media and stuff like that. It's the only reason I know this. But as soon as the dad said Giffords, I was like, Giffords is in New England. Does this movie take place in New England? And then Amanda caught the license plate bit, and I was like, was that just like SpawnCon slid in there along with like the Tate's cookies in their kitchen? I don't know. Or the Dell laptops. But yeah, they said that. And then I decided to look up Ellison State Park. The only one that came up was Ellison State Park in British Columbia, Canada. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely not where Evan Hansen went for a joyride on a bus trip for a day. And after
Okay, but
school.
so I'm just doing some research here too. There's an Ellison Park in Rochester. Not Ellison
Oh,
State Park, but Ellison Park.
Oh,
okay.
Um,
okay.
but I was reading what people were, there's somebody talking about the musical, and I guess like all the baseball players referenced in that song that got cut are Orioles.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. That
Yeah,
makes sense
and
then
that was
that
the
it's
thing
in
with
Maryland.
and the baseball too. Like the baseball, he says like it's signed by the entire '96 Orioles team. He specifically mentions Cal Ripken Jr. He's wearing a Georgetown Law sweater.
yeah,
Like, okay, yep, this is a very
gotta be
DC
Maryland.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, can we
Good
talk
morning, Baltimore.
back to Hairspray? So also, I would be so mad if I was that dad and I would end up selling this baseball that's been signed by like Cal Ripken Jr. and a bunch of people to give for this restoration of this apple orchard on the basis of a lie. Like that would just be awful. I'd be like, are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. I was cringing the entire time. I was like, oh my God, dude, stop.
All right, Ben, what was your question?
My question is, what do you think has a worse message, this or Grease? Obviously, Grease is a better film, but what do you think has a worse message?
That's hard. What do you think the message of Grease is?
Well, the thing that everybody says is like you have to change yourself for the person you love, kind of, because of what Sandy does at the end of the movie. Like I know that's the
Gotcha.
knock on Grease all the time.
Gotcha. Okay. I was thinking about one of the other characters. I mean, this one tries to have a better message. It really wants to have a better
Yeah, I think this one's
message.
more well intentioned, but it maybe fails more than Grease does. I feel
Yeah.
like Grease does kind of track with how people are in high school. Like I feel like
Yes.
people do change themselves to be with the person they have a crush on. Like that's not,
Right. Regardless of if you're 18 years old or 40 years old in
yeah,
high
that's
school.
not an unheard of thing people
Yeah.
do.
Right.
I mean, it's also older, so that makes me want to be like, I mean, yeah, but that's just like what people did, and that's the message that people got back then, right? Like, if you wanted a guy, you had to cook for him and, change, whatever. But
To wear black leather pants and walk through an amusement park.
absolutely,
Tell
you
me
gotta
about
be
it,
sexy.
stud.
You gotta be sexy if you
Just
want your
just sticking
man.
with the 30-year-olds playing high schoolers. That's why I wanted to compare it to Grease there.
Yeah, that's tough. I think this one fails more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I got.
Okay. Anyone have any final thoughts or funny moments?
Words fail.
Words fail.
Words fail.
All right. Well, then, real quick, Geoff, why don't you give us your movie recommendations?
All right, I've got my 3 movie recommendations here. The first one, actually, and I'm really happy we were talking about it so much early on. It is, in fact, Hairspray. Hairspray was the first, as I was going through the list, I'm like, okay, what is a Tony Award winner for Best Musical set in high school that is actually good? And as I'm scrolling through the list, I'm like, okay, yep. Hairspray, perfect. I like Hairspray. And sure enough, Ben's rendition of Hairspray and the apocalypse after the Terminator is going to continue on here. But no, the movie rendition set in, or from the 2000s, 2010s, I forget when it came out, is really, really good.
2007.
Thank you, 2007.
Yeah,
It's
so
really,
good.
really good.
I love that movie.
It's amazing. The second one I'm going to recommend is Theater Camp. Amanda mentioned it earlier. For a review on Letterboxd, and I forget the username, said it's because of this that I forgive Ben Platt for the Dear Evan Hansen movie. So Theater Camp is one of my favorite movies of the last few years. I love it so much. It's a mockumentary style movie about a summer camp in middle of nowhere New York for middle and high school kids to practice theater, and it's a great story about found family, and it's a great story about feeling part of a community and being accepted. Great music, great performances. I love that movie so much, and infinite rewatchable for me. And then the last one is one
Two
of
Evan Hansens in that movie.
2 Evan Hansens in that movie, 2 married Evan Hansens too in that movie. And then the last one is one Amanda recommended because I was trying to think of a third. And it's a quick little shout out to Caitlin Deaver. She's having a little moment with The Last of Us right now.
Beaver Fever.
Deaver Fever. Shout out to Booksmart from 2019. She was my pick for Best Supporting Actress that year at my personal Oscar ballot. I think it was either between her or Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit. I can't remember what I picked ultimately, but she's amazing in that movie. Beanie Feldstein is amazing in that movie. Her and Beanie play the valedictorian and the salutatorian at a high school. Never went to parties, never had fun. Very much super bad coded, but a fantastic movie. incredibly fun, very good tie-in to like a modern sort of retelling of Superbad. So yeah, love Booksmart. And if you like Caitlin Dever, maybe don't watch this movie, but definitely watch Booksmart.
Well, and to bring it full circle with Beanie Feldstein, Ben Platt and Beanie Feldstein, who are besties, are also doing a Merrily We Roll Along movie they're filming over years
Yes, they are.
to make it accurate to the musical. That's told over, decades.
I was about to say Paul Mescal, I believe, is in
And he's the
that
third
too.
one. Yeah,
Yep.
he's the third one.
Man, what a motley crew that is.
Yeah.
Shout out, that's Richard Linklater. Yeah, Richard Linklater's
Yes.
making that.
Yes.
Good director. He's made some good movies.
All right, Ben, why don't you give us your TV recommendation?
Sure. I've got two here. One is if you like insufferable Ben Platt, you might want to check out The Politician on Netflix, which ran for 2 seasons. It's a Ryan Murphy show where Ben Platt plays an uber ambitious, I believe he's a high school student at the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
Going a little bit younger, but still post Evan Hansen on stage, pre Evan Hansen on film. Very ambitious, climbing the ladder, and so the first season he's still in high school, and then I believe the second season he's kind of working his way up, and I believe they might even plan to do a third down the road when he gets older, and they, I don't know, but it wasn't very good, and it wasn't that well received. It's super campy and super dumb, but if you liked Dear Evan Hansen, you'd probably like The Politician. And then my other one is if you'd like to see a better show, but still really enjoy seeing 30-something-year-olds play high school students, you should check out Friday Night Lights, which definitely has some grown adults, mixed in with some actual teenagers. You see Scott Porter and Taylor Kitsch and Minka Kelly, who are definitely well into their 20s and visibly so, playing high school kids, but it's a great show. So I'm much more forgiving of that than I am this movie.
Good to know. Thank you both. So let's move into our ending segment. Today, Ben, you are going to tell us your Tony predictions.
Yes.
So
I'd just like to give one quick disclaimer here, which is we're recording this, after the nominations have come out, but well before the actual Tony Awards and before this episode, which the Tony Awards are this coming Sunday from when this episode of our podcast drops, but we're recording this a couple weeks before that. So when I'm looking at the state of the race right now, I don't think it's going to change that much, but I just want to say that in case, some musical has an Amelia Perez style implosion. I just wanted to clarify, in case somebody has old tweets out there that we'd find that this is based on, the feelings about a little over a week since the nominations came out is when we're recording this.
I appreciate the lack of a real campaign sort of window for the final nominees. I know they're obviously campaigning before the actual nomination process and everything like that, but thankfully there's only a relatively short period of time, unlike the Oscars or the Emmys when there is
and they're still
months.
Performing 8 nights a week.
Right, exactly.
That's, or not 8 nights a week. There are not 8 nights a week. 8 shows a week. They're still performing 8 shows a week. So they do campaign, they do luncheons, they do this and that, but they can't, devote all their time to this the way you can in Oscars season.
Right. They still got time for the actors on actors videos on Variety.
All right. So Ben's going to talk about each of the 4 main categories. So let's start with original plays, and I'll read off what was nominated, and then you can give us your thoughts.
Sure.
Okay. So for best play, we have English, The Hills of California, John Proctor is the Villain, Oh, Mary, and Purpose.
All right. So I'll give also a disclaimer I gave last year, which is I've not seen any of these, but I follow Broadway relatively closely, and I will see a bunch of them this summer. Not plays as many as musicals, but I go and see a bunch of them. So I will have more. These are more based on what I understand the race to be going, not my personal opinions of these plays and musicals. So for best play, Oh Mary has been a massive hit. And it's been running on Broadway for almost a year now. I'm so mad because I was in New York last summer, at the beginning of July, and Oh Mary was just starting previews, and it wasn't anything yet. I mean, it had played off Broadway and had a little bit of buzz, but it wasn't like a big hit or anything. And I probably could have gotten, they had 5 o'clock showings. I could have snuck in and seen it probably for a pretty cheap ticket. And I didn't know that much about it at the time and just didn't go. And then it blew up into this huge hit. And I was like, well, shoot, I wish I'd seen it then. So now I'm going to see it for a much, much more expensive price this summer. Um, it's likely to win just because it's been just such a massive hit in a way that plays rarely are that aren't star driven or bringing somebody like George Clooney or Denzel Washington, Jake Gyllenhaal. This is an original play without known names in it. It's a complete farce about Mary Todd Lincoln, and it was proudly unresearched about anything at all. Um, and, and it seems like the front runner. If there's anything that's going to spoil it, there could be two. One, John Proctor as the villain did very well with nominations and was kind of a late entry into the race, but has been very well received. And then Purpose just won the Pulitzer Prize, but did not get nominated for director. Felicia Rashad is the director of Purpose, and that's so I feel like not getting nominated for director is a big red flag as far as its win chances. But it did win the Pulitzer, so you never know. That one is about a sort of I believe, like a Jesse Jackson type family and the family dynamics of that. So it should be a good race. I know that a lot of people have said that the plays in general have been very strong this year.
Nice. Would that, if you win the Pulitzer, would that probably put you as the favorite for like best, I don't want to say screenplay, but like what is that, best book of a play, best screenplay or whatever?
So they don't actually have a best book of a play.
Okay.
So the playwright wins if the play wins best play.
Got it.
Unlike musical where they do have best book of a musical.
Got it. Okay.
Because then it's also the score for the musical. So play, there's not a separate category just for the script.
Got it. Yeah, I guess.
But I understand. I feel like I've always thought maybe there should be, because I do think the script is different than the overall play.
Right.
But they're treated as one and the same.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm not making predictions because I don't know much about it, but I do. What I pick would be Oh Mary, because I saw Cole Escola do an interview with Stephen Colbert, and I'm like, oh, there's actual attention being brought to this play. Probably means it's a big deal and probably should win. So yeah, that would be that's the only sort of recognition I know of. Also, I did not when I saw them on Colbert, I was like, where do I recognize this Cole? And they were in a season of Search Party. And one of the featured characters as he abducts the lead character in that show and force her to be in like a dollhouse or what have you. And they were very good in that show. Very hateable character. So I'm excited for Cole. That's exciting.
Yeah. It's been really just something we haven't seen on Broadway in a long time. Such an original play without big names attached, just being this big of a hit.
That's awesome.
That rarely happens. So it's been cool to see.
Great. Next, we have Best Musical with the Buena Vista Social Club, Dead Outlaw, Death Becomes Her, Maybe Happy Ending, and Operation Mincemeat.
Yes, an interesting group this year, and there were a lot of musicals out this year. But these five, I would like to note, I got in my predictions, I got best play, best musical, and best revival of musical exactly right in my nominations predictions. I did not get revival of the play correct, but the other three I did.
Bravo, Ben! I'm clapping for you over here.
This one. So Buena Vista Social Club and Death Becomes Her and Maybe Happy Ending received the most nominations of any musical or play, with 10 each. So the front runner, though, is definitely Maybe Happy Ending. This was a musical that premiered in the fall with Darren Criss and Helen J. Shen. It's about two robots who fall in love. This is a very short way of putting it, but it's been kind of the little show that could, because it started not without much fanfare, didn't look like it was going to stay open very long, and it's very much built an audience over the months since it opened and has become kind of a hit, which has been kind of the little musical chugging along there against some other much bigger, broader shows. So, and it never really gave up its frontrunner status once it kind of got there. I think maybe the most likely spoiler to me is probably Dead Outlaw, which I think is a little too weird to win Best Musical. It's based on a true story of a guy who was killed and then became like a circus attraction because he's embalmed and like stayed, so I guess the actor, like for the first half of the musical, you see his story, and then the second act, or it's not, it's a one act, but the second half of the musical, he's basically a dead corpse on stage as a kind of a freak show attraction. Very niche, but was very huge hit off Broadway last year. And could potentially upset, but I'd be shocked if it really did. Death Becomes Her is a big broad hit, probably a little too campy and silly to win. And then Buena Vista Social Club people really like, I know, but I don't know that it has the strength to win it.